Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Hey there, welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, where we're expanding the natural family planning conversation. I'm your host, Ellen Holloway. All right, we are here with Kathleen. Oh my gosh, I don't even think I asked you how to pronounce your last name.
It's a tricky one. It's Chavanis.
Chavanis. Okay, I wouldn't have said it that way, I think.
It ends up usually coming out like chauvinist. You know,
I think I would have kind of said that, and then been like,
you're like, nope, not this one. Nope.
That's not the right word.
Chavanis. It's a tricky one.
Awesome. Okay, Kathleen Chavanis. Kathleen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Awesome. All right. So this is one of our NFP journey episodes in this series of sharing as many of these stories as we can. So Kathleen, why don't you just take it away? Share with us your NFP journey.
Yes, I would love to. My husband and I have been married for 8 years now. So we both grew up Catholic and, no like big conversions or anything like that. So we both knew what NFP was, just generically, and we knew that that's what we would be practicing. It didn't take any like selling or convincing us. We didn't learn NFP until about 3 months before our marriage. So that was like a whole...
That's quick. That's a
it
quick
was
one.
3 cycles. Yeah, to figure it out and, go time. So, we had a friend who
like stressful cycles at that, like
yes.
3 stressful cycles.
Oh yes, very stressful cycles. So we had a friend who taught Creighton. So that's what we ended up learning and going with. She taught us, and I had no idea what I was doing. And yeah, we get married, and about like 2 weeks, 3 weeks into marriage, we find out I'm pregnant. I guess it was 4 weeks into marriage. We found out I was pregnant. I was like, okay, that didn't work very well. So our first was born on our 10-month wedding anniversary. It was great. So we didn't really have a ton of time to kind of experience like married life and like really practice NFP and stuff. It was just like
or even have that like newlywed
thing. Exactly. It was basically just like 10 months of marriage, you're pregnant and miserable, and now you're sleep deprived. So
so good
here
luck.
You go. Exactly. So that was it. And then we ended up pregnant. We continued with Creighton, and we were very confused about it the entire time, especially because I was breastfeeding. It was like, what the heck is going on? So we ended up realizing we were pregnant with our second when our first was 9 months old. So our first two are 18 months apart. And it was at that point that I was like, you know what, we need a new method. This Creighton is just not working for me. It's not making sense. We got to figure something else out. So we learned symptothermal at that point.
Did you know about the multiple different methods, like when you first learned Creighton, or did you think Creighton was kind of your only option?
I didn't. I knew there were other methods. Like I said, I think because I don't even know why we went with Creighton. I think it's just because we had our friend.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I
thought we were just like, yeah.
A lot of times, like, you don't really know what's going to work right for, your body and your schedule and the way that you live your life. And so it's kind of a crapshoot with, honestly, when you just kind of pick your first method sometimes.
You got to start somewhere. So you just, so we learned symptothermal, which I knew was out there. I knew it was another option. And it was just such a better fit.
That's so
gave
good.
Me way more confidence. Yeah. And I will say that once I really, became pretty proficient with symptothermal, I was so happy that I had learned Creighton first, because the mucus all made so much more sense. Like it was almost too detailed for me in Creighton.
Sure.
But like all that detail just like fit so well. Like it made symptothermal so much clearer to me.
Right. And if anyone's listening and doesn't really know the big differences between Creighton and symptothermal, Creighton is a mucus only method. And it has very detailed ways that you record your mucus observation. There are many different traits that you chart. Whereas with symptothermal, that is a symptom plus thermal. So it's your mucus symptom and you're charting your basal body temperature. And the mucus observations for symptothermal are broken down into much more simplistic categories, usually kind of like 3 categories of no mucus or dry, and then kind of like a sticky mucus or a non-peak type mucus or less fertile type mucus is sometimes the names of those categories. And then there is a peak type or slippery type or fertile type mucus is kind of what they're called. So those are sort
watery,
of watery. There's a couple of different, depending on the method, there's different ways to state what kind of mucus that is. But anyway, that just for anyone listening who's like, what are they talking about between Creighton and symptothermal? I don't even know.
They've lost me already.
Yeah, they lost me already. We're only like 2 minutes into this episode. All right, I'm sorry. God. I interrupted your story. Continue.
No, that is okay.
Found symptothermal is a way better fit for you. That's awesome.
Yes, it was way better fit. But I was still very exhausted because now I had 2 children, 18 months and younger. And I did deal with a pretty bad period of postpartum anxiety after I had my son, my second. So it's at this point that things really started to kind of come to a head in our marriage regarding NFP. And there was a very clear lack of understanding and communication between us. So my husband would begin making comments here and there about like our lack of sex. And when he would say that, I would literally laugh at him. Like it would just be like, bah! Like, what? And I did, because to me, it was like, we have 2 very small children.
Yeah. Like how are you even thinking about this right now?
Like, it's like, this is what happens to people. Like, we're not like abnormal. This is very normal, but like, I guess my lack of sympathy like really offended him. And like, sure. I know this now and like, I can't even laugh at it anymore. Like, but we were just coming from 2 totally different angles where, I was working, but bringing my kids to work with me and just like all day long trying to do like a lot of things.
That is so hard.
Like,
yeah.
And he was like, going to work and coming home and wanting to have sex. And I was like, are you joking? So, I was like,
right. In your mind, he couldn't have been doing anything but joking.
Right. Exactly.
That's what you were living through. But then in his mind, he was in a different place. He was in a different mindset on this, intimacy conversation, basically.
Right. And so, it ended up, he was very hurt, resentful and angry. He felt rejected by me. And he didn't really open up about it much. We would sit down to talk and he would get like enraged by my lack of understanding. Like he would just be like, I cannot even speak to you. And so it was like, that was kind of the point where I was like, okay, like this is a big deal to him. Like it's a way bigger deal to him than I feel like it is to me right now. And so I feel like I really need to like start trying to be more empathetic and start kind of trying to figure this out. There would be periods that would go by where like, if I just like was exhausted or in a fertile period and didn't communicate it probably really well to him that I was in a fertile period, whatever it was, where I basically just had to be like, no, not tonight. He would like give me the silent treatment. Sometimes it was just like, it was this really like deep seated, like frustration and anger and resentment. So it was like that for probably a couple years. And I was angry that he like didn't have compassion for me. It's like, I've got a lot on my plate here and I don't feel like I can handle anymore. Like I need this space. Like I need this break. I can't get pregnant right now. I felt like
it was just kind of basic misunderstanding on
both
sides of
on
this
both
conversation.
Sides. Exactly. Yeah. So, we were both resentful for those different reasons, but we were also really mad that number one, no one ever told us that this was real life NFP. Like, again, we didn't need to be sold on it. Like we knew about it, right? Like we knew what we were getting into to a degree, but you still go to pre-Cana and you're still looking for that, like, that wisdom from people who have been there, done that. and they just didn't give it to us. Like, it was like, oh, it's so beautiful. I mean, we all know the rhetoric, right? Like, it's like, oh, it's
flowery,
so flowery,
1 week
wonderful.
of
You watch your cycle
talk.
your fertility come and go. Nothing's more lovely. There's a lot of things that are lovelier than watching my fertility come and go. Okay. So I don't know. But then we were also really mad that we didn't have any resources where we felt like we could go to start figuring this out. I mean, we did have other friends, and we do have other friends who practice NFP, but for the most part, they were in similar or different spots with it, where they were also struggling in one way or another, So it was like we could talk and kind of like have that, just kind of vent together, but we couldn't really go to each other for any real ansers.
Right. There wasn't like a person or a source that like had an answer for you,
right.
or even just a suggestion or something right. to try to help.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't really exist.
I know. And we even we're like, well, maybe we'll go to, like Catholic Charities or something and try to start like couples counseling. But where we were living at the time, like I had gone to like individual counseling with Catholic Charities, and they were a little more on the liberal side, and like, not like, you know what I mean? It was like, you really need someone who understands the foundations of NFP if you're going to like go and talk it out with them, and we just felt like we didn't really have that place to go to. So it was probably in like our 6th year of marriage, I guess, somewhere around there, that my husband did Exodus 90 for the first time. I don't know, maybe you want to like tag Exodus 90 on this episode.
I will totally. I 100% am going to tag Exodus 90.
Tag 90. But yeah, what it did for, I mean, it was amazing for him in so many ways, and he's done it every year since. But
wow, that's dedication. My husband did it once, and he's like, I'm not doing that again.
No, he's all about it. He's all about it. And it's like hard for him, but he's in like the best way, So what it did the first time around was it really started to transform his prayer life, more than anything in the beginning. And he just got deeper and deeper into it, and it was so good. And he began taking all of that anger and the resentment that he was feeling about like, our marriage and intimacy and all that kind of stuff. And he just started like completely giving it to God. And what he said he started realizing was that he cannot control the way I feel or what I want. The only thing he can control is how he responds to it and how he reacts. So he was like, so that's what I'm just going to do. I'm just going to completely surrender all of this to God. And it's really hard to do it, but I'm going to do it. And I'm just going to trust that he's going to give me the grace to feel more peace about it.
Oh my gosh. What wisdom for just any situation, any person living your life. Like, you cannot control the people around you, but what you can control is how you react to those people and those situations.
Exactly.
Such wisdom in that.
Yeah. No, it was really amazing. And he was like still basically convinced that I just like wasn't even attracted to him, which was like insane to me and made me really sad. Like, it was just like, and that was another kind of like light bulb moment in my head where it was like, okay, like this means so much to him that he thinks I'm just not attracted to him, And so I really started figuring out like, this is like his love language, like not even physical touch. It's just sex.
Yeah. like I think there's like a spectrum of the physical touch love language.
Exactly.
Like, for some physical touch people, like a hug is how you show love, but like other people, it is like literally sex with your spouse. Like that is the love language. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No. And that is 100% him. So it was like, all right. And, I had like read all about the love languages in the past, and I was like, okay, like, yeah, why didn't I make that connection? That's what this is for him, is it's his love language, So I really kind of started, he started like really having more peace. He wasn't like perfect, but he was definitely in a better state of peace. And I was starting to see it differently. He almost inspired me to like look at the whole situation differently. He was like, I'm just going to switch my perspective on it. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe then I can switch my perspective on it. And through this, we really started having better conversations. We started opening up a little bit more. We started, like they were just more productive. They were more fruitful. And the major turning point in all of it for me was in one of the most productive conversations we had. He like really broke it down for me. And he said, just imagine growing up like in high school and college as a teenage boy, like a young adult. You're just like surrounded by the temptations for sex, right? Like your friends are doing it. It's being talked about in the locker room all the time. You're going to parties where people are like upstairs in bedrooms and, like girls are like, not in their best state and kind of like throwing themselves at you, all this kind of stuff. It's like literally surrounding you. It's everywhere. But, in your Catholic education and in your family, you were told that like none of that is worth it. Like that's not what it's meant to be. And that the church loves sex and they love holy married sex. It's like the creme de la creme of sex is, within your marriage.
Yeah.
And so to hold out, like you don't want all that cheap stuff. You want the creme de la creme.
Yeah. Hold out for dessert. Like dessert is better.
Exactly. So, and you're led to believe that like, okay, when you get married, like it's just go time, like you just got to hold out for now. And then you get married and it's just like, what is the saying? No holds barred. You're just like, this is it. Right. Like This is it. Because you're in love. And like when two people are in love, like, and attracted to each other, they love having sex with each other. And like, you guys are just gonna have sex all the time. Like that's what happens in
all the time
marriages,
24/7.
Exactly. That's what happens just all the time. And then, you get married, you learn NFP, you get married, and you figure out that it's not actually go time. Not really go time. It's like go for a few days and then you got to wait like a week and a half. And
minimum,
exactly. And that, women's hormones don't work the same as men's hormones. Their libidos are very different. Your wife doesn't just want to have sex all the time. Her brain plays a huge role in wanting to have sex, and her brain is like overwhelmed with a million things. And,
or two kids.
Exactly. Yeah. Like 2 young kids and a job and trying to get dinner on the table, like all these things. Like it was expectations unfulfilled. He's like, this is what I was led to believe. And I held out and I got here and it's not at all how it happened. And he just felt insanely let down. And so, I asked him, I said, what do you wish that you were told, as a teenager in Catholic high school, or, what do you wish that you were taught about this instead? And he said, I wish I was told to practice chastity now because I'm going to have to practice it later. That chastity does not find its end point in marriage. Right. And that I wish I was told to, right. It was like this was like the turning
point. Let's say that
again.
Like that was so good.
Yeah. That I wish I was told to practice chastity now because I'm going to have to practice it later. And to fortify my flesh, to get used to denying yourself. Because, it's not just going to go away one day. This right now in, high school and in college and all that, it's practice for when you can have it, but you can't have it. It's like, it's practice for later on.
Chastity does not have this end point in marriage. And I think it's not that any chastity talks explicitly say like, oh, chastity is going to end when you get married, but it's that they don't explicitly say
right
that chastity continues for your whole entire life.
Right. And I think it's easy to think about like, oh yeah, well, I know there's chastity in marriage. I have to stay faithful to my wife and not like go off to other people.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about.
Chastity is like way more than that. You know, it is. It's like being able to, like it's harder in marriage, really. Like it's, than it is. I mean, for some people maybe, but than it is when you're dating, because like you said, when you're married, like you can have it, like if you want to, but if you're trying to avoid, like you need to have the fortitude, like you need to kind of be able to hold back. And so it's harder in a sense,
right. Like sex is now a perfectly licit activity with your spouse.
Right.
There's nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong with having sex with your spouse.
Right.
But our theological teaching teaches us that, sex has two primary purposes of unity
Right.
and procreation. And so if procreation is something you're trying to avoid, then you gotta avoid the unity part too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so, it was, yeah. And he also said that, he wished he was told that it's hard now, but that, the virtue and the holiness is virtue and holiness are built by doing hard things. And that if he could have like approached it from that angle, he just felt like he would have been more prepared for the reality of marriage, or sex within marriage.
Yeah.
And yeah, for the first time, like after he really laid that out, I was just like, wow, yeah, like that would suck. That would be like awful. If you did have that expectation and this is what you got from it, like I really started to feel like awful about it. And so yeah, that was kind of the turning point where I was just like, you know what, I need to try a little bit harder. Like he's trying really, really hard. And now it's my turn. Like I really need to try harder. And I am like a person, like I need to speak his love language more. I need to like start denying myself, right? And like my like bodily goods of like needing to go to sleep. Like, no, like you do, yeah, but like not every night you don't, like you can like you need to start denying that need for sleep a little bit for 20 30 minutes, whatever it is, you know what I mean?
Your spouse's love language is extremely important, and if your spouse's love language is physical touch and like, and further than that, right, so like really having sex, intimacy, then yes, it's such a heated conversation because it's like, oh yeah, we have a duty to our spouse to have sex with them, and like people are like, oh my gosh, that's the worst thing, you can't say that. It's like, I mean, yes, we really do have a duty to our spouse. This is an extremely important part of marriage. You are not married until you have sex.
Yeah.
Like the mass that you get married at, that's like the pregame.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a great way.
That's like the foreplay. I don't know. Like
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
But you literally are not married until you consummate the marriage. Between the husband and the wife. And so there is that duty to consummate the marriage in that sense. But further than that, like we have, and I think people just get hung up on the word duty, it's like, I don't want to have a duty to anybody. But we really do. We have a duty to our spouse to love them.
Yep.
And to give ourselves to them fully, totally. And like that then leads into a duty to our spouse to have sex with them.
Exactly. Yeah. And like they have duties to us as well, right. Like it goes both ways. So I think that, it's like, oh yeah, it's like what is it? The wifely duties, but it's like, no, there's like husband duties too,
Right. Right. This is not a one-sided thing. And this is also not to say that like that duty to our spouse to have sex with them, that doesn't mean we have to have sex with them every time that our spouse wants to have sex with them. Like that's not what that duty means.
Right.
But like you can't be married in a sexless marriage. Like that's not, you're not married.
Yeah.
You're just not.
That's 100% fact. Yeah. So it's super important. So yeah, that's just basically the point we reached, where I was learning to speak his love language a little bit more. And, I am a person who's like really struggled with that, like feeling sexy and flirty and all that kind of stuff. Like it just kind of it makes me feel like a little uncomfortable. And I just realized like, that's like not okay. Like you can't use that as an excuse anymore. Like that's something you need to work on. And you need to start like flirting with your husband a little bit more, and like, because that is the stuff that like really makes him feel like I love him, like I'm attracted to him. Like that's where he gets that, So it was like, again, he's moved out of his comfort zone with a lot of this and just completely surrendered to God. Now, like, you move out of your comfort zone in all the ways that you need to.
Yeah, ladies, if you're struggling with this, let me tell it to you straight. Like, your husband thinks you are dang sexy. Like, he really, really does. And it might, like, he might not ever say that. Or he might say it and you might not believe it. Like, I think like, this is something, Kathleen, that I also like struggle with, in this mental block of like, I feel weird flirting. I feel weird, like, trying to be sexy. Like that's not me, you know?
Yeah.
But ladies, your husband thinks you're so hot. He really does. And
it's so true.
And if you can just start believing that about yourself, that can help you through this roadblock. The other thing that can help you through this roadblock is like fun lingerie that you like you need to buy it yourself. This is like, we're so getting off on a tangent right now.
But it's an important one. It is.
In my personal experience, my husband bought me lingerie to try to help me feel sexy. And I hated that because like, I didn't really like what he picked out. And it just sort of felt like he was trying to tell me that like, look, this is the only way I think you're sexy. And that's not what he was trying to do. He was trying to help. But you know what helped was me buying it. I went and looked on the website and picked out the ones that I liked. And I'll just mention Mentionables.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like,
oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you know about them.
There's like 3 or 4 from Mentionables.
Oh my gosh. Oh, they're such a great company because all of their pictures are model free. And they're like a totally woman run company. And they've got really fun stuff at, I personally think like affordable, reasonable prices.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll put a link to
Mentionables and sales.
I'm just going to tag all sorts of people.
Exit Signy, Mentionables. Let's just keep the list going. This is just a sponsor episode.
Right.
Oh gosh. But yeah, no, I mean I second all of that. It is so important. And like, I'm not like awesome at it yet, you know, but like, I am just learning that like, you just need to trust your husband, you know, like right now, like my hair's up. I also realized that when I wash my hair helps me so much. I'm showering way more than I've ever showered before, because I just, when I feel clean, when I feel like just having my hair washed and just putting a little bit of product in it to like give it that good like bounce or something, like it just boosts my confidence, you know,
Absolutely.
Like 100-fold. It's amazing.
Put on a little mascara.
Yes.
Pull your hair if you need to. Like, just put on a dress that makes you feel like you don't even need to put on a dress that makes you feel sexy. Like, put on a dress that you like wearing.
Yeah.
You know, just I totally agree. Doing things like that help you boost your confidence a little bit can really help you through this roadblock too.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, so all that is to say, we really learned, you know, to kind of meet in the middle on this a lot. You know, he started communicating a little bit better, like about how he felt, and, you know, if he felt neglected or if he felt rejected or something like that. He started talking about it a little earlier, which was great, because then I was like, okay, yeah, like tell me these things, like we'll nip it in the bud, you know, we'll just get it done. And then I also, one of the biggest personal takeaways from my personal life is that I learned that we need to work harder to introduce NFP and fertility awareness to people way earlier.
Oh, preach it.
I know. And like, I know, yeah, I'm like preaching to the choir here, but it's like, it's just, if we had this stuff in his Catholic high school, where, you know, he would have been sold.
Okay. The fact that it's not taught in Catholic high schools baffles me.
It's insane. It's insane. But I mean, I think there's a lot of political stuff with it too. You know, like everybody that goes to Catholic high schools doesn't really, but you know, still it's like, there was a perfect opportunity to set these realistic expectations for many of those kids' future vocations, you know, like it's not like just like a job or like it's their vocations, like it's what they're like sanctity depends on,
right?
And so like, why are we like selling them? There's nothing wrong with teaching chastity and preaching it, but like, let's teach it in the light of married life and in the light of like what sex is meant to be, and why it's meant to be that way. And if he just had those expectations going in, like a lot of this wouldn't have been an issue. So now I start my certification classes to become a FEM instructor
Fabulous.
in July, and I'm really excited about it because I didn't know who I was going to learn through at first, but when I found out that FEM had a teen specific track, I was like, that's it. That's where we're going, because now I'm like it is a passion in general. Like I've been thinking for a long time about, becoming an instructor and just being another presence, in our diocese and everything where I can teach. But now it's like specifically like I want to get to the teenagers. Like that's where I want to go. I want to give them these realistic expectations. And I also just want to teach them about their bodies, these things that they have no idea about. I mean, I've talked to so many teenagers that I've known personally through various, ways, and they have like no idea that like there's about a 1 week period, give or take, where you can like actually end up conceiving.
Yeah. Like technically speaking, there are 6 days.
Yeah.
Like that, like that's really only what the window is. Most methods calculate somewhere between 9 and 15 days, just kind of depending on your signs, blah, blah, blah. We've said this, like I've said
because
this.
You can't know exactly when you ovulate. So you have to like play it on the safe side.
But like biologically, actually, in perfect conditions, 6 days is the most that you can be fertile, because you're looking at 5 days of life of the sperm and then 24 hours of ovulation. So that's actually the most that you can be fertile.
Yep. Yeah. And, these teenagers just have no idea that that's the case. They just assume that they could get pregnant any time they have sex within their cycle.
I remember being in I think 8th grade or something, and being legitimately told like, there is no such thing as safe sex. Like you can always get pregnant. It's like, that is an outright lie.
That is a problem. Yeah. That's like, so now that's, through all of this, I mean, I guess, it's God, bringing beauty out of like really dark areas and dark places, it is.
He has a way of doing that.
He does, man. I'll tell you.
Darn it.
But yeah, I mean, that's where our hope comes from, right? So it's a good thing. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm like, okay, like we kind of went through this, and we're still going through it to a degree, that light years better than it was. But like, let's like take this now, like we learned, and let's now teach other people, let's like
Fabulous.
Move forward and, really start all those things you wish you were told. Let's start telling them.
Yeah, let's start talking about this stuff. If you are listening to this and something that Kathleen said, and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally agree. I wish I had been told that. Or something that we haven't even talked about, and you're like, I just wish I had known X about NFP. Okay, well then go start telling people about it.
Start telling them.
That's your job.
Exactly.
If that's on your heart, if you have ever said, I wish I knew X about this before I started it, that means you have to go tell someone about it. That I'm giving you that directive right now.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. You're so right. So yeah. But yeah, I just think overall, like teaching chastity in light of biology and fertility and stuff, it can only help teens to see the greater purpose of it all, and it's one thing to just say like, just don't do it. We don't believe in it. Just don't do it. It's not good. Don't do it. Or, you don't want to get pregnant. Like, no, like, let's show them the deeper meaning of this, right? Like it's, it's so much greater. It's God's whole plan for humanity. You know what I mean? Like is tied into this idea. Like, let's expound on that, for our teenagers. And, I just feel like they could end up entering marriage so much more prepared than we're sending them now. It's how many years of seminary to become a priest, and then you get like a weekend of pre-cana.
Yeah. Okay. doesn't add up, right? If you join a religious order, you have like a certain number of years, which is somewhere around the same amount as a priest. Like it's somewhere around like 7 to 10, maybe even like 15. Like
and you make like temporary vows before you make,
before you're like in the order. And with a priest, right, you have like at least at minimum, you have like 7 years in the seminary. In some cases, it's closer to a decade, or longer. But for marriage, the only thing that the Catholic Church requires is 6 months. You have to like talk to the priest 6 months before you get married. And then you have like, I think the requirement in most dioceses is 20 hours or like 24 hours of instruction, which is basically, that's like a weekend of your, marriage prep weekend. Or like if you're doing, some sort of like an evenings for the engaged thing, they like add up those hours.
Yeah.
24 hours. That's one day.
That's one day versus how many years? Yeah. It's like,
so
it's crazy.
We need to start preparing our young people, our teens for marriage, even before they have decided or discerned that marriage is right for them. We need to start teaching them about marriage prior to that point. And
I think also teaching them about it, as we're saying, like that can also be a huge part of their discernment.
Exactly.
To be like, you know what? That sounds hard, but it sounds like I'm up for it, and like, that's what I want. I want to do this on behalf of somebody else. I want to struggle with somebody through all of this. I want to, lay down my life for someone like that. Or just like, you know what? I feel like that's not really suited for me. Maybe I need to look into other things. It could just be, so beneficial to them in so many ways. And again, and for the girls, just to know their bodies and to learn those signs of their health. It's like, there's so many reasons that it should be in their hands, and it's just not there yet. And it's like making me crazy that it's not. So that's why, taking it in my own hands.
Do it. Go.
We're going to do it. But anyway, so that's it. That's my little story.
That is so fabulous.
It went a little long, but
that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Before we wrap up, I do want to just like retouch on something that you talked about, because I think it is so important, is the love languages. And I'm going to put a link to the website for that. And then you can find all the info. You can find the book, you can take the little quiz, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The finding out the love language of your spouse is imperative to your ability to communicate with each other. And communicate means way more than just talking. Sex is a form of communication. There are a ton, like way more nonverbal ways of communication than just speaking words. And so, that was something that was really helpful for you in your journey, Kathleen. And so, and I think it's also been helpful for my spouse and I. And so I just really want to encourage you to take a look at that. And if you're married, take the little quiz with your spouse and then go and talk about it. There's really, really great resources, tons of free stuff on there. And then also you can buy the book and dive deeper into it. And if you're engaged, do it with your fiance, please.
Absolutely. Do it now.
Before you get married. And if you're single, find out what yours is. Find out what your friends are. Love languages is not just for spouses. They actually have a couple of different quizzes on there. There's ones for little kids and teens. Finding out the love language of your children can be so helpful.
That's a good idea.
Communicating with them. So really, we are just really touting a bunch of like other things today. Love language,
really are.
Oh my gosh, the love languages.
Dr. Gary Chapman, that's
so
his name,
worth
right?
your time. Exactly. It is so worth your time. And I just wanted to touch on that before we closed out. Kathleen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And you're doing awesome work.
Thanks so much for listening. Please be sure to follow us on Instagram at Charting Toward Intimacy and subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. If you are interested in sharing your own NFP story or sharing about a topic that you are passionate about NFP, please reach out to me. I'm always interested in chatting with you and looking out for new podcast guests. Until next time.